Hey out there. Here we are again. Switch for Good podcast. And I am Dotsie Bausch alongside my co-host, Alexandra Paul.
Hi, Dotsie. It's great to be here.
I know. We're here. We're in person. We've been here a few weeks now, and we're to the phase where now things are starting to open up again and things are feeling normal-ish, sort of, kind of. And I know when we started this, we had some vanity things that were happening.
We both rushed into the nail salon. I got my brows.
You got your brows waxed, yes. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna be fine because I just got my nails done yesterday, thinking this is only gonna last 2-3 weeks, this COVID thing. And then look at them now. Now. So those things are starting to open. You have your hair appointment.
I have my hair appointment because I cut my hair.
Yes, you did.
I cut my own
which
hair.
was not a great idea, but it wasn't terrible, I will say. It was just that one little piece that was kind of missing.
I colored my hair, and I actually don't think I'm going to, she doesn't know this yet, but I think I will be doing less coloring because I did find my coloring groove. Like, hey, I can do this.
Oh, yeah.
And it's $7.
It's right. It's like $7.99. Yeah.
And it takes 12 minutes instead of an hour and a half.
I know. So, I'm wondering how many salon owners and hairdressers have that's going to happen, and people are going to come back and go, you know what, I got this. Yeah. Just give it a trim. It's like, every time we're all walking around with orange hair, and it's like, no, we don't actually have this down. It's not, I did my roots too, and it's orange, but I'm going to go Thursday and get highlights and lowlights to fix that up. So don't pay attention.
Did you? Your hair looks great. Are you serious? Did you dye yours too?
Yeah, I always tend to do my roots here and there because it's $8.
Right.
Instead of
that's what I did my roots because my grays are really coming out.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. So
you would not know.
Yes, thank you.
You would not know. And you don't need to stock up on chocolate anymore because you have access to it now.
Well, yeah, and actually I calmed down, and so I'm not eating chocolate now. I'll let you know when I start eating chocolate. You know how I go from like when I get emotional, then I'll go to chocolate and I'll spend a time where I'm eating chocolate emotionally, and and then I decide, you know what, this is time to stop, Alexandra. And then because I have the self-efficacy that I've stopped before, I know I can stop. And I'm the kind of person that once I start, I'm addicted, right? We've talked about that. So once I start, it starts off really well, and it's manageable, and then it just gets a little unmanageable, and I just go,
right.
Stop
well, there's
now.
worse things.
Yeah, there are.
We've learned from our previous guests that the phytochemicals in dark chocolate are quite good. So, it's okay.
It's the sugar that's not good.
Okay. All right. Well.
Well, let's talk about something really good, which is our guest, Kathy Freston. I've admired her for a long time. She's a best-selling author, a speaker. She's a television personality. She's been on Oprah and Ellen and pretty much every television talk show, spreading the vegan word, talking about her books. And she's just a great spokesperson for the plant-based lifestyle. She's beautiful inside and outside. She's authored 8 books. And the thing about Kathy that I really admire is that she's really warm. And so doesn't come on as strident, even though she has a powerful message that she's obviously extremely passionate about. So that even the most diehard, meat eater and milk drinker is softened by her approach. So she's been a vegan for 15 years, and she's been bringing the vegan word to the world for that long. So she's bringing it to us today. Kathy, welcome to the Switch for Good podcast.
Hi, guys. It's so great to be here. Thank you for having me. I everything you're talking about, I'm like, I just want to talk. I want to hang out with these gals.
We're going to do that right now.
So, Kathy, before you're now an author on vegan topics, including tons of recipes. You're an animal activist, but I'd like to know a little bit about the Kathy before your identity as a vegan food advocate.
Oh gosh, if someone had told me I was going to be a vegan activist when I was growing up, or even in my young 20s, I would have been like, you're out of your mind, because I loved every kind of meat and cheese and every kind of, comfort food that I grew up loving. I'm from Georgia. I'm from Doraville, Georgia, and we had chicken fried steak and cheeseburgers and wings and, all that stuff and turkey on Thanksgiving. And my dad would throw us, burgers on the grill on the weekend. And that was just, I grew up like every other kid in Georgia, and I loved everything. I didn't think twice about it. I had a dog that, I found on the street. I loved her. I made zero association with the dog that I loved in my house and the food that was on my plate. And I remember thinking that, I don't know, like I felt macho eating a steak or something. I just felt like it was, I am powerful. I am, strong. I am cool. And I'll have some foie gras. And let me try that, those escargot, those snails. I just thought it was kind of macho. I just want to tell you this because it's not that I popped out of the womb being a conscious eater or being vegan. And I used to go hunting with my boyfriend, a boyfriend long time ago. I never actually pulled the trigger myself, but I would go out hunting with him and fishing. And so I was completely disconnected from my food.
Yeah, that is so fascinating because, right, it's obviously completely straight playing into the stereotype, right? Like I'm big and macho and rare. Usually we associate that with males. But I remember after healing from my eating disorder, eating meat, feeling like macho and cool because I wasn't one of those girls that was on a diet. You can take me out on a date and eat like a 15 million ounce porterhouse and all this. And that's so, I did not thought about that since you just said that. And I can relate to that.
Picky or, just like, give me anything. I like the guys and, if someone was saying, do you have any food restrictions? I'd be like, no, I eat everything. And I love it. And it just made me feel like I was hardcore, solid, strong, and just didn't think about it.
Yeah. And then you early on had a few family members who got sick, right? Was it cancer, some heart issues, and you yourself then were catapulted on a health journey, not necessarily veganism, just juice fasting, low carb, whatever the hip thing was to try at that period of time. But was that the first time that you started connecting, maybe there could be something here with the food, or no?
I think I was vegan before my dad had cancer, and but that probably it locked it in for me. So my dad had melanoma, and he had a tumor the size of a tennis ball in his brain, and from diagnosis to his passing, it was about 5 months. So it happened really quickly. And, my mom and dad had cheese and crackers every night for dinner and, with cocktails. And my dad had a big bowl of ice cream before he went to bed. It was like on his night table. He'd have it every night, Breyer's vanilla ice cream. And, when I started talking to him about food and diet and health, he kind of gave it a little try, and then he said, "You know what, Kathy, I just don't want to do this." And at a certain point, you can't make someone want to heal themselves, and it broke my heart because I really felt like it would have helped. I mean, it was pretty advanced cancer, so maybe it wouldn't have helped. But the point is that he was very attached to the food that he ate, and it made him feel content and happy. And who am I to, sort of disabuse him of that? And I do think diet is a very personal thing that someone has to get to from an organic place. You know what I mean? It's like an alcoholic. You're never going to go to an alcoholic and say, hey, you should stop drinking. They need to find their own bottom. They bottom out, whether it's they lose their job, they lose their marriage, they get into a car accident, whatever it is. People have to decide for themselves. And I think that's when the changes stick. So, when my dad was sick, it definitely made me very grateful that I found this way of eating at the stage that I did, because I'm sure I would have certain genes that would have been activated by my diet, and I could certainly go down an unhealthy direction for sure. By the way, I never juice fasted. That's not me. am definitely not a juice faster. I like food so much. I wake up in the morning and I cannot wait to eat. I'm all for the intermittent fasting, and Dan, my partner, doesn't eat till noon, and I get the whole wisdom of it, but I like me some food. So
I'm with you.
Yeah, I
with
too.
you. I
Also
never tried it either, and I won't, and I'll definitely not try intermittent. Like I like eating.
I decided that life wasn't worth it to waiting till noon to eat and stopping at 7 the day before. It's like, no, I like. So how was your relationship with food growing up, in general? You modeled some too, and in your 20s you tried a lot, like Dotsie mentioned, some diets, even that wasn't juice fasting, to get some weight off. What was your relationship with food growing up and into your 20s?
I loved the social of food. So it was, I grew up outside of Atlanta. We would go down to the Varsity, which is this big fast food place downtown, and we would chow down. We'd, go out to parties, and it was always followed up by a visit to Dunkin' Donuts or IHOP. And it was definitely, I was not super heavy, but I put on some weight. I was probably 10 to 15 pounds overweight. It's not like I was super overweight, but when I started modeling, I realized that I had to change my diet, and I was clueless. I mean, my smoothie growing up was fresh fruit, milk, and a raw egg. That's what my smoothie was, because I thought, I'm going to get some protein in here. How I didn't die of salmonella, I have no idea. Somehow I made it through. And when I moved to Paris, I just ate, I would go between eating grapefruit and smoking. I smoked a pack a day. And I would try just like relaxing and eating like the French did. It didn't work for me. So, and I was always a little bit overweight. The clients were always coming in and saying, oh, you have a little bit here, a little bit there. My skin was terrible. I had really bad acne, which for a model was terrible. The makeup artist and the client would lean into me and say, le petit bouton, which is the word for pimple. So I'd have lots of les petits boutons all over my face. And it was, all over here that I don't know, someone told me it was to do with hormones. When I gave up dairy, that thankfully went away. Because adult acne is not pretty. But anyway, I was always struggling to be svelte and thin, not skinny, but thin enough to model. And I just never found my way, frankly. I just never found my way until I went plant-based, because I love to eat. I love the feeling of being full. I love the feeling of solidity, when I eat a lot of food. And so dieting just never worked for me. I would bounce between trying to starve myself with a grapefruit juice or grapefruit, and then pigging out with croissant and, everything else. And so that's why veganism really works for me, because I like bulk. I like really a lot of food. And because it's so full of fiber and it's not caloric and it's nutrient dense, my body feels satiated, as you know. And so I'm not crazed with craving. So I finally found my way after I quit modeling. So there's that.
So you're a real inspiration in terms of how people can change, because of what you said about used to be a hunter, used to be a smoker, used to love to eat your burgers, and now look at you.
Yeah,
well,
there you go. So that dog you mentioned, was this the dog that sort of changed everything for you? And
it wasn't that one. I didn't wake up. I did not wake up. I did not wake up when I was out hunting in the woods and I saw the dead pheasant. I did not wake up when we were trout fishing in the river and there was a fish on the hook. I did not wake up. So that's why I have a lot of patience with people, because you don't know what's going to connect the dot and why, and you don't know what the resistance is. And so had someone shamed me and pushed me, and I don't think I would be where I am right now. I just had to get there. I I had a little dog named Lotzi. She was a little Chihuahua, and I just love this dog so much. And I had read a little bit about animal foods, and I think this animal organization had recently sent in a pamphlet, and it showed a picture of a cow being dragged to slaughter, and I just kind of put it away really quickly. And so I was playing with my little dog Lotzi. I was rubbing her belly, and she was on her back, and her little legs were, you have Chihuahuas, Dotsie. It's like they're ridiculous. They're just ridiculous. And I just was thinking, oh my God, I love this dog so much. I love animals so much. And then a little voice inside of me said, well, if you love animals so much, why are you eating them? And it was like, oh, what do you?
Just out of nowhere, like in your head?
In my head, my conscience. I believe it's called my conscience.
Right.
Called me out and said, girl, this is not making sense. You love your dog. And so I started picturing her. I just started playing these tapes in my head. Okay, so pretend Lotzi, my little Chihuahua, is a chicken, because she's about the same size as a chicken. And she is crammed in these tiny little spaces, and with all that ammonia and the smell and the fear, and then I pictured her in the slaughter line being led to slaughter. And my dog, as I'm sure your dog, you know when they're worried, when they're sad, when they're in a bad mood, when they're happy, when they're playful. She's so emotional. And so I started picturing her in the slaughter line being scooted along, and the terror that she would feel was excruciating to me as someone who loved her. And in that minute, I thought, oh my God, if I wouldn't want to do this to Lotzi, why would I want to do this to any animal? That's crazy. I would never, because if I know that if I spent some time with a chicken and getting to know that chicken, because they have great little personalities, or a pig who's so clever, or a cow who's so lovely and gentle, I knew that if I got to know that animal, I would never, ever want to see them going through that. And so in that moment, I thought, well, crap, this is really inconvenient, because now I've connected the dots. I see it, but I love my food. I don't know the first thing about not eating animals. I need my protein. I need my iron. I want to have muscles. I want to be strong. I want to have energy, all of this stuff. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to point myself in the direction of someone who does not eat animals. And I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm just going to lean forward. I'm going to lean into it. And that's what I started doing. I started exploring recipes. I started reading books. I started trying different foods, ordering things differently at the restaurant without demanding it of myself, just really trying to explore, taking it on with a spirit of curiosity, really, and adventure. And that's when I did it little by little, but it took me probably maybe a year and a half to go vegan. I gave up eating one animal at a time. And for me, that just worked. And not moving from like cows to chickens, but replacing one animal with plant food. So, I gave up eating cows first, and now I feel like if I did it again, I wish I gave up eating fish or chicken first, because they're smaller. So in terms of units of suffering, I think there was so much more suffering because there's smaller animals, and so people eat more of them. But I started out giving up cows, and then I would just substitute out for, instead of eating a burger, I would eat, back then it was like a black bean burger, which was not that good. But, I just kind of found my way that way. And little by little, I became vegan. I'm also not a purist. I'm not, I think a lot of people, and they're rightfully so, are very healthy, like that only eat whole foods and plant-based. And I think that's amazing. For me, I need a little comfort food every once in a while. So I'll eat like an Impossible Burger or Beyond Burger, a field roast sausage, some vegan cheese. I love that stuff. So.
Yeah, we're all
Little
over
bit of
that.
healthy.
We're with you. Definitely with you.
You wrote that your body felt so much stronger for making the choice to be vegan, and I'm quoting you, but more important, so did my heart and soul. I felt empowered all around. Can you talk about the physical and spiritual changes that happened to you after you went vegan?
Oh, there were so many, and they were very nuanced, and some of them were powerful. So physically, I finally got the body that I wish that I had while I was modeling. So I finally lost weight easily, and I became stronger, leaner. I had very little energy my entire life. I was just always tired. I used to have this fantasy of like being sort of an Indian Raj where they carry you around. I don't know if they even do that, but I had this I just was so lazy. I was a couch potato. I loved to sit around and watch TV. Now I spring out of bed. I have tons of energy. I sleep really well. My acne cleared up, which was really big for me because I felt so much shame around my skin, especially being a model. And I just felt so embarrassed about it. So that cleared up. That was the best thing for me. And then I also had like it was just sort of a grayish pallor. I didn't have good color to my skin, and now I feel like I have better circulation, and so that shows up in my skin. I feel like I have better coloring, and that circulation I think is part of my energy as well. My cholesterol is very low, and my blood pressure's I think it's low to normal. And so I had all these physical things. Most of mine were vain. Most of mine were I wanted to be thinner and I wanted to clear up my skin. And so those two things happened, and it was great. As far as spiritually, I'm not one particular religion, but I do believe in certain values that run through most religions or spiritual practices, and that is kindness, mercy, responsible stewardship. And so without necessarily knowing that this is part of what I was doing, I feel on track now with who I wanted to be spiritually. I feel like I'm living my values, and I can feel good about myself as a human on this planet. I feel like I'm, to the best of my ability, not causing pain, that I'm being kind, that I'm showing mercy, that I'm also practicing self-restraint. I'm not saying, screw it, man. I just, I want this, whatever. I'm learning. I continue to learn to have self-discipline, but in a loving way. And it just feels really good to me. I feel like I'm part of the solution in so many ways, rather than part of the problem. And I was definitely part of the problem before.
Yeah. So during this period of time of this transition, earlier in your career as an esteemed and well-known author, you were a meditation coach, and you wrote, your first two books were about like relationships and transformation in relationships, and discovering the secrets of soulmate love was the title of one of them. So did you always love to write? First of all, like did you know that this is going to be your path? Because of course we want to traverse all the way through the vegan books that you've written, and all that incredible work that has reached so many people to help them take that one step toward the life and the spiritual life that you're speaking about.
I don't think I always loved to write, and I just felt like I always had something. I think that I like to connect with people. And so I like to grow and share the growth with people, and just talk about that, and know that we're all sort of, lifting, we're sort of evolving. Personal evolution is really important to me. So it's like, if you figure something out, it's like, oh my God, I want to show you. I want to tell you how this happened for me. And so I've always felt the desire to, share the good stuff as I learned it. And so my first two books were about relationships, and it was really, I was doing meditations, guided meditations. This is a while ago, and I I don't think there were a lot of guided meditations back then. And so it was all about sort of, being awake and aware and conscious, whether it's in your relationship or in your work or how you are with your family, whatever. That's, part of my realization was I am a big fat hypocrite because I am not practicing consciousness in the way that I eat. It was like, I'm very conscious in my relationship, and I'm very conscious in this, but I had no awareness around my food. And so that was an area where I felt like, I just have to pull back the veil. And if I'm any kind of a human being who truly wants to evolve, I have to look at what goes into my food, and I have to question myself, am I okay with that? Am I okay with that at the end of the day? Can I stand by and watch what happened to that animal in order for this particular dish to come to my dinner table? Am I okay with that process? And, invariably when it involves animal foods, it was like, no. It just was no longer making sense. So, the reason I became such a vegan activist and a vegan author was, I think that it was just in the air, sort of ready to pop. When I wrote Quantum Wellness, I was going on to Oprah, and all of her producers, came and said, listen, do not talk about being vegan. Do not talk about being vegan. Because remember, Oprah was sued by the meat industry many years ago for libeling meat. So I hadn't talked to her about it, but the producers were saying you can talk about service, you can talk about meditation, you can talk about relationships, just don't talk about not eating meat. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go on Oprah. I'll do exactly what they say. And Oprah being Oprah went immediately into, so why are you vegan? Oh. So I did her podcast first. I'm not sure if it was called a podcast back then. Maybe it was a radio show. And it was the day before we did the big TV show, but she wanted to know everything about, well, are eggs okay? And what do you think about milk and all of this stuff? So I was like, Oprah's asking me, so I'm going to answer, And then she had that same curiosity on the TV show. She really wanted to talk about it. And so suddenly, that was when shows were getting 9 million viewers. And so she announced that she wanted to do this vegan cleanse, and it just really took off. So I really feel like there was this thing in the air that was crackling. And I was like, okay, I'll talk about it.
Mm-hmm. So you had your first two books were more specifically about relationships and personally transforming, and then your second and third book had to do with a larger, more holistic view of having a happy, fulfilled life.
Yes, and so quantum wellness is really about so quantum physics, as you know, it's like where you put your attention that can actually affect what's happening on a molecular level. So it's where you focus. So I thought I want to focus on these things in my life and in the book, where if we focus our attention on them, we can actually shift things. And so in a big way, just sort of uplift things. And so I wrote about all kinds of, just personal evolution. What do we do to personally evolve as human beings? How do we work through conflicts? How do we deal with love relationships? How do we deal with our own health? And so they were just sort of pillars of overall wellness. And one of them was about conscious eating. And so I dealt with food in that. So, and then after that book, it was all about veganism. To me, it was my calling. It was my calling. As I know it's yours as well, and so many people listening.
So you write Quantum Wellness and you go on Oprah, and then it sounds like somewhat suddenly, in a way, you are catapulted as this expert in that field, because you were. Mm-hmm. And so what was your experience back then, before you wrote then the second and the third and the fourth book that you said, obviously, as we know from the titles, are more focused on just conscious eating versus some of the other aspects of wellness? What was your experience in the world about in relation to veganism back then?
My experience in the world, it's very interesting. So I was married, and when we got married, he married a gal who was ordering steak and foie gras, and he bought me a Prada fur collar for Christmas one year. That's who he married. And so I changed, and we didn't share that path together, and it was, so he was in the media business, and we entertained a lot, and had a lot of really smart people over for dinner. And so it was hard because I was saying, I don't want to serve meat anymore. And, this is back before veganism was hip. And it's kind of like, oh my God, Kathy, it's not his fault. It's not his fault because he didn't marry someone, but he and I really did not share that journey together. So, but he was great in that he sort of I did it incrementally. And one night we had a really amazing dinner party in New York, and there were all kinds of media people. And this is actually how I met Tal Ronnen. I said, I really can't in my bones anymore. I physically cannot serve meat or dairy, anything, because I'm just, even if I don't eat it myself, I felt like I was part of the market. I was paying for someone else to kill animals, right? So he said, well, if you're going to have these people over for dinner, you better make it seriously good. And so I was like, crap. And I had heard of this guy named Tal Ronnen, who was an amazing vegan chef, but he wasn't a private chef. He wrote recipes, and he was just, really quiet and all of that stuff. And a friend of mine, I said, you got to introduce me to Tal Ronnen because I need help. And so I said, Tal, you don't know me, and I know you're not a private chef, and I know you don't do this for a living, but please, these are influencers coming over for dinner. And I'll tell you who one of them was. It was Steve Croft from 60 Minutes. And I got to make it really good. And please help me. So he came over and he made, I think it was chicken Milanese with, obviously not chicken. No, it was veal Milanese. Oh. I think. Or no, it was veal piccata. That's what it was. So I didn't say anything. My ex-husband said, don't, make an announcement. Let's not have it be about veganism, whatever. And of course, I'm as a vegan, I'm like, I want to.
What was it? What was the veal? What was the?
Seitan. So it was seitan.
Seitan. Okay. Cool.
We didn't have I don't even know if Gardein was around back then. It might have been, but anyway. So he made veal piccata that was really seitan, and it was fabulous. And everyone around the table said, "This is the best veal I've ever had. It's so good." And Steve emailed Tom the next day, said, and he's a Midwestern guy, and he said that was the best veal I've ever had in my life. And I was like, it was seitan. I loved it. It was so good. And that's the thing. It's all about the presentation and the ceremony. It's like the ceremony of Thanksgiving is not about the animal, the turkey on the plate. It's about the favorite comfortable stuff that we're so used to eating with these people that we love. As long as it's a bountiful table that's got a lot of great stuff that's super tasty, it doesn't have to be an animal, and that's what I really learned entertaining back then.
Were you ever able to tell them? Like, did he ever allow you to tell them the truth so that they knew? Wow, after it was over?
No.
Oh no! Wow,
I don't know, because I didn't have their email. He just shared it with me, so it's not like I couldn't. I don't think I ever. Maybe I did. I can't remember. It was a long time ago. But it was. Yeah, I'm sure. Knowing me, I would have found a way to let them know. Hey, it was seitan. Yeah, I'm sure I did. But so that's how Tal and I met, because Tal was just this soft-spoken, brilliant chef who was motivated by he felt like food was the thing, that if you feed people good food, they don't need to eat animal stuff. As long as it tastes good, as long as it's, feels special and fabulous and familiar and all that stuff. And he is a genius. And he started Crossroads. And, so anyway, I brought him to Oprah with me, and he did the vegan cleanse for her. And I introduced him to Ellen and Portia, and he cooked for their wedding. And he's a shaman with food. I mean, he's just wins over hearts and bellies of so many people, because people say, oh, if I can eat like this, why would I ever eat animal stuff? Mm-hmm. And that's what's happening now in the culture with Impossible and Beyond and Field Roast and Hungry Planet and, Ripple and all these amazing milks and cheeses and Miyokos. It's like, okay, well, there's no cost anymore. There's no giving up of anything. So why not just spare the animal, do something good for the environment, and eat the plant-based version?
Mm-hmm. Speaking of good food, you have a lot of recipes in your books, and I'm curious, as someone who doesn't cook and who's always impressed when folks on TV can whip up an amazing meal in 4 minutes.
You make potatoes.
I make potatoes, and I boil vegetables.
And you eat them whole, dipped in garlic.
I steam vegetables. Tell me about the recipes in your book. Are they ones that you developed, or do you copyright them from somebody else? How does that work? And how do you choose them?
That's the reason I brought Tal into my life, is because I couldn't. I'm like you guys. I don't really cook much. I do a nice bowl, like I know Dotsie, you love a good Buddha bowl, or I do the rice and the beans and the vegetables and the sauerkraut and all of that stuff, and I can do that with some avocado toast to throw there and throw that in there. But no, I am not a good chef. So the recipes in my books, 2 of the books are Tal Ronnen's recipes, and then he got too busy and too famous. And so then I had various other chefs contribute, and according to which book and what needs, one book was all about losing weight, so they're sort of geared up differently, and one was about the cleanse and everything. So they're all different, but one criteria I have lately is that they have to be doable. Like, they really have to be doable. Mm-hmm. Like, if I can do them, then they make it into the book. Right. So I wish I could take credit, but I have written no recipes.
Do you try the recipes just to make sure they're doable? Do you eat? Do the chefs make them and then you try them? And what's your process in terms of deciding?
I try them. Not all of them. They're all tested. They have to, in order to be published, they have to be tested. So that means the publisher hires testers. And they, make sure that the measurements are right, that it actually tastes the way it's supposed to, and tastes really good and everything. So they're all tweaked. But yeah, I've tried a lot of them, but I wouldn't say all of them. And I just go to Crossroads and have Tal's cooking.
Yeah, that's an option for those that live near there. What was your, you were doing all this, and a lot of it because of you, during this period of time where veganism went from niche and super unsexy and almost annoying. We're still a little annoying, but to this something that's a fad. Hopefully it will not only be a fad, but is faddish right now, hip, cool, interesting, and that transformation, that transition, that period of time that was happening from 2010 to 2020, in those 10 years. What was your experience with the culture changing in relation to so many celebrities kind of getting the memo? Some of the celebrities were because you gave them the memo that this was the way to live and eat.
Many. I think that what happened is, with the internet, everything is at our fingertips to see now. So the truth of what happens in slaughterhouses is literally a Google away. All you have to say is meet slaughterhouse video, and there you go. And so I think that, and so many great films have been made And now you've got game changers and What the Health and Forks Over Knives. But back then there were films by PETA like Meet Your Meat and things like that. So people were really able to finally start seeing the truth of what's happening. And we're starting to, I mean, now we're not starting, we're already there. But in that period you're talking about, Dotsie, we started learning about climate change and how real this is. Like this crap is happening, and it's not only on our watch, but we are going to live to see these devastating effects. And if we have kids, it's really freaking scary. So I think that people are taking it more seriously. There's so much science behind it now. You have really incredible science-based reports coming out, like through Dr. Greger, nutritionfacts.org, and Dr. Neil Barnard with PCRM. You've got Switch for Good now, where you're seeing that athletes actually thrive eating this way. So it's this momentum that is picking up on itself, and you've seen it on TV. You see like huge personalities talking about it, and it is just, people are starting to get, and at the same time, you've got entrepreneurs like Ethan Brown and Pat Brown from Impossible, who are creating these kick-ass products so that people don't miss anything. So you've got the awareness on the rise, and then you've got the availability of vegan food on the rise. And so now they've intersected. Because before there might have been a rise of awareness, but if you have to go home and eat rice and beans and you're someone who's used to eating steak and eggs, ain't gonna happen, right? So if you're someone who's used to eating steak and eggs and cheese, now you have that awareness, like, oh shoot, maybe I shouldn't eat this way. And I go out to the store and there's some Miyoko's cheese and there's this field roast sausage, and I'm gonna have this amazing Beyond Burger, So there's it's this brilliant intersection that's happening in the culture, and it's happening faster than we could have ever imagined, especially now with COVID, where you see that the current way of producing protein, the current way of producing meat is just simply it's not resilient, it's not sustainable, it doesn't make sense on a financial level. More than anything else, it doesn't make sense anymore. Like, you can't run food through these animals at such a pace. You have to have workers like squeezed in together at the slaughterhouse plants, and they're getting sick with COVID. So these companies are, huge companies are going to be responsible. And so people are getting sick, people are getting injured. And then there's the environment. And so now we're at that fork in the road where huge corporations are beginning to see that our old way of doing things, our old way of producing meat is simply not sustainable. It does not financially work. It is not resilient, because one little kink in the system, like this virus, happens and all of these animals are piled up, and the profits are way down, and now all these people can't come to work. It's just not working anymore. Mm-hmm. So
You were in this movement before it became cool, before it was a money-making enterprise and the capitalists got involved and the conservatives started, veganism started getting respect because vegan companies, as you said, were doing so well. One of the things that from watching you on television shows is that you have so much warmth and passion for this. You talked earlier about how you're not a perfectionist, and you have a book, one of your books is called The Lean, and I don't know if that's a play on, and that's the weight loss book, that also you're talking about leaning in. Can you talk about how do you inspire people to change? What is your secret? Because you've done it a lot for many, many, many people, both personally and in your books.
Mm-hmm. Well, I approach someone the way that I want to be approached, and that means with kindness and respect. I don't want someone yelling at me. I don't want someone telling me what to do. I don't want someone making me feel like I'm stupid. I feel like when someone talks to me in a way that's kind and warm and that it's gently informative and has some good information, then I'm going to respond to that. And so I treat people the way that I would like to be treated. And I think that begets change, because then it's a resonance. Like, we're all going through this together, and I want to share with you what I've learned. And hell no, I'm not going to shame anyone. You know, as I said, I hunted, I fished, I bought my dog. I mean, I didn't know, and I didn't know until I knew. And I think that if I can share my story in a way that is helpful in any way, then that makes sense. And by the way, you said something earlier about, vegans being annoying, and sometimes they still are. And I have to say, that is very true. Vegans can be really annoying, some of them. And by the way, some of them are just full on, militant and mean and shaming and all of that stuff. But on the other hand, we have to understand that it's like so jarring what you see and learn. Like, when you start to realize what's happening to these animals, it's like you want to scream from the rooftop, stop, it's so horrible, And so I understand it. I understand the desire to speak so loudly, to shout so loudly that it cuts through, cuts right to the bone. It's misdirected and maladaptive probably in a lot of cases, but I understand it. It's a passion for people. To this day, I'll sit at a table, with relatives who are eating, say, turkey for Thanksgiving. If I go to someone else's house, I would never have it in my house, but I'm not going to, I can't tell someone what to have in their house. It kills me, right? All I see is this gentle bird who loves to play catch, who loves to call, back and forth to her family and play. And all I see is that dead bird on the plate, on the platter, and it breaks my heart. It makes me so sad. And at the same time, if I sit there and I tell my host how wrong she is and, how horrible it is, she's never going to listen to me. So I want to be as gracious as I can. And here's the thing. This is probably as you ask me the question, I want to stay connected to myself. If I can stay connected to my feelings and know what's going on with myself, I can connect to other people. Right? So I think if that host who's serving turkey and it's breaking my heart, if I can be respectful of her and kind and not judgmental, but still remain connected, I think there's going to be something that translates. You know what I mean? Because people appreciate connection. That's just our human nature. So I just try to stay connected and communicate from that place.
So tell us about the petition that you started. Was it with PCRM with McDonald's, with asking them to make a plant-based burger, a vegan burger? You got almost 250,000 signatures.
I petitioned McDonald's to come up with a vegan burger, and they actually still haven't. So they're testing one, or they have it in Europe, they have it in Canada. They have not introduced one yet in the United States, but I think it's very close.
Wait, McDonald's, but McDonald's serves a vegan burger at its facilities. It serves the Beyond Meat burger.
Not yet. Burger King does. Burger King does. Carl's Jr. does. Yeah.
Oh, I thought I had gone to McDonald's. I thought I did. Okay.
Burger King.
She doesn't frequent fast food places.
Yeah, no, I don't. But my husband and I went to one. I think it was the Impossible, so that would have been Burger King. But I thought that McDonald's had done it. So wow. Okay.
Mm-mm. Not yet. It's very interesting. It's very interesting, and they've really, I think, missed the moment to become leaders in this field. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they're way, way, way behind in their followers, and they've missed the chance to be out in front. But no, they haven't done it yet. I would imagine that they're close because they've done it in Europe and in Canada. So
yeah.
We're getting there, but we have a lot. I think it's something like 200,000 signatures, and we have a ton of press. I mean, we've just but for some reason, McDonald's has not seen the light yet. So,
do you know how well the Impossible Burger has done at Burger King? Do you have any stats on that?
I don't have the stats on it, but I think I think it's like the best selling thing. I mean, when they started it, it was like the highest selling item on the menu. I don't know if that's still the case, but it's damn good.
That is very true. It's damn good. You're a fantastic, obviously, orator, author, wordsmith. And I have a question for you that came up a couple weeks ago for me that I think we're going to be getting ourselves into a little bit of trouble with. And it has to do with how we speak about plant protein. We have a tendency, I think, I know I do, to say, oh, plant-based protein. We don't say animal-based protein. We just say burger or steak or whatever it is. Like, we're not labeling like that. I was giving a lecture to it was a webinar in all over mainland China a couple Saturday mornings ago, and we did the lecture, and then there was a doctor that did a lecture, and then we got questions and answers that lasted way over an hour and kept going. And one of the questions was that, and there's the chat, right? So a lot of people said, yes, I have the same question. I have the same question of this guy, and he said. He started out and he said, we don't have over here the distribution that you guys have in the States. We don't have the ability to get or have access to a lot of the products that you have in the plant-based proteins. And he goes on to describe some of these plant-based proteins. And he's describing either processed food products or protein powders. And I realize that he literally thinks plant-based protein is a product. And has absolutely no idea that the protein is in if you eat a black bean or if you eat a bite of quinoa. I mean, just absolutely no idea that he needs to buy a product in order to get plant-based protein. And I thought, oh my gosh, if I just came into this movement last week and I started Googling, I would think plant-based protein was a product too. Like I can see how that. So what would be? I realize I got to switch how I'm talking about this. What is your thoughts and suggestions on how we might turn this around? Because if we keep going, and we are, I mean, those of us that are in it are like, oh, like great, Beyond Burger, field raised sausage, but we're eating potatoes and beans too, and we know. How can we educate people to know that it's not plant-based protein, right? It's just food.
Yeah. No, I think that's an excellent question. And something that I'm starting to say is I eat an animal-free diet. And so it's that just means I eat an animal-free diet. It's like anything that grows in the ground or on trees is good by me. And so, animal-free protein, it could be, and then you just say it's beans or it could be tofu or whatever. It's just, free of animals. And I think that's actually something that I would love to see more of, because it connects the dots for people in that moment. If you're looking at a menu, just say, would you like animal-based or would you like plant-based? And so it sort of forces somebody to say, oh, I want animal-based. I mean, that sounds kind of gross, So, but
sick and sadistic.
Okay, that's what you want. I just want to be clear. You want the animal-based menu? It's like, no, I'd rather have the plant-based menu, or the animal-free menu. So I think it's a way of talking about it. And I know there are a lot of people who shy away from the V word, and they don't like the word vegan. I have always loved it. I think it's just speaks to, it's not just about health. It's not just about, strength and protein. It's also about your spiritual well-being. And when I say spiritual, I mean, who I am as a soul inside, being right with the rest of the world. And so that feels like veganism to me is more all-encompassing. It means I care about the environment. I care about that animal who stands right in front of me. I care about my body. I don't want to get cancer. And I think the V word speaks to all that, where plant-based tends to be more about, and I know it's super popular, but plant-based is more about health, So I get it. Some people are defensive about the V word. I just think it's a freaking great word.
It is, and I'm going to go back to that animal free though, because to us, right, we have all of the spiritual and emotional pieces to veganism because we are, but the outside world, I don't think that they make that connection. But at a restaurant, right, if I say I'm vegan, they're like, oh, I don't know, but we definitely have a gluten-free menu trying to please me. But you can't really get around, I eat an animal-free diet. Do you have some food for me? I mean, nobody doesn't know what that is. I'm digging that a lot. Yeah.
And also, I like the sort of double entendre of the animal is free. But
yes, living being free diet. If it was breathing before, that's what was under.
Anything with a mother, I don't eat. Is what I. I love that. So someone might argue that fish are not animals.
I know that's what I was saying. Like it's like but anyway, we can educate them to just
So you have a new book coming out called 72 Reasons to be Vegan, Why Plant-Based, Why Now? And you've written it with Jean Stone. Can you tell us a little bit about the book and when it's coming out?
So it's coming out in December, and Jean and I were talking, and we realized that that we know of, just book of the reasons, just short bites of reasons. Just, it's not a how-to. It's not a book full of recipes. It's like, to give to your cousin who still thinks that fish is a vegetable. Here's all these different reasons. And one of the reasons is fiber is your body's bitch. It's like fiber is the superhero, and people may not know that fiber is only in plant foods. It's not in any animal food. So it's all these different reasons that are very small and digestible, and it's an easy read, and it's a book that you can easily give to your friends and family when you want them to understand, but they're not going to read a whole. I think we're in an age now where nobody wants a laborious book to read. It's like, I can't read, when you're reading a recipe and there's like this whole dialogue until it gets to the recipe and that you're like, just give me the recipe. And that's this book. It's just, there's no talking around it. It's just, boom, here are the reasons, and it's light and fun and easy.
There are a couple of reasons you can share
I want the
with
top
us.
five, like your top five. I was 72.
Let's see. Okay. Well, fiber is your body's bitch is my favorite. Let's see. Veganism is cheaper than a Tesla. Because if you care about the environment, beans are the longevity food. People all over the world who tend to live the longest, eat beans every day, at least a cup of beans a day. Pigs are smarter than a 3-year-old child. Chickens like to be cuddled. So those are the kinds of reasons. Like, people might not know that chickens like to be cuddled. I mean, it's amazing. My friend, a great person for you guys to talk to is my friend Jennifer Barrett. She's incredible. She's a chicken and cattle farmer from Arkansas. And she had this awakening. She and her husband Rodney had this awakening that how they were raising these chickens was really wrong. It was antithetical to who they were on the inside, and their health was suffering in many ways from eating this stuff as well as farming this stuff. And they had this awakening, and they stopped farming animals, and now they're completely 100% vegan. And so they're turning their chicken sheds into mushroom sheds. And so there's no chickens that they're raising anymore, but her daughter, my friend Jennifer's daughter, had these 2 rescue chickens. She doesn't know what happened to the mother, that there was a pile of feathers. So they're guessing, they live in a farm, out in Arizona, that some animal got to the mother and these 2 baby chicks. So Jennifer has adopted these 2 baby chicks, and it's so amazing to watch her because she was a chicken farmer, and there was sheds after sheds of chickens who were being raised very quickly and all this ammonia and stuff to go to slaughter. And to see her now nurture these 2 baby chicks, it's so healing. And they love to be cuddled. They're like little kittens or something, she'll pet them, they'll crawl all over her, and they're the loveliest little creatures. And I think that when we make that connection and we see the animals, what they're really like, because we've objectified animals. They're the cogs in a machine. We don't really think about pigs are very clever. They're very curious, you know, they remember things. They look at you and you know, cows love classical music. There's these qualities that are quite endearing. And so I think when we learn about that stuff, it's harder to eat them. They come to life. So the book has some of that stuff, you know, really information about what animals are really like and short little fun bits. It's not, there's nothing traumatizing in the book. It's nothing that, you know, is going to give you nightmares. It's just sort of connecting the dots in a lot of little tidbits.
Mm-hmm. And it comes out in December, folks, so it's great for a stocking stuffer, Christmas present, any kind of holiday present around the new year.
Yeah. There's so many things about animals that we just, you know, we just don't have the education. Your book, Ingrid Newkirk's new book, goes deeply into the lives of animals. And I think one of my favorite things learning that she was talking about birds and their, you know, internal GPS systems. And, you know, they travel 6,000. The Arctic Turk travels 40,000 miles a year, right, without a GPS. And on record, humans have been caught, seen, it's happened, following their GPS straight into rivers, straight off of bridges, and straight into oceans. Because we can't stop looking and look up.
Yeah.
Who's the idiot now? Wait.
Yeah. No, the animals definitely have a lot to teach us if we just sit back and listen. And that's an incredible thing. It's like, here's another thing you asked me, like spiritually or whatever. It's like, we have to numb ourselves out as humans to some large degree in order to not think about these animals, what happens. I mean, it absolutely is a necessity. It's not like, oh, I'm going to numb myself out. It's an unconscious thing. We become numb. So once we're not eating animals, that numbness doesn't need to be there. And so we are so much more connected with all of life. We're connected more with animals, with people, you know, with ourselves. And that comes from making the choice of not eating animals. It's like something comes alive in you. And it's really quite an amazing thing to feel. It's like you just feel alive.
Yeah. It's like turn off the numbing button that we pressed our whole life. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'll take that.
Well, thank you so much, Kathy, for spending, you know, so much of your life turning off the numbing button on so many people and opening their eyes and their hearts and their palates to amazing what it can be to be vegan.
Thank you for saying that. I'm just so happy to be part of this community. I really, really am honored to be part of it.
Thank you.
Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Well, thank you, gals.
All right. Yes, we'll connect soon. Thanks for being on.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, gals.
Bye.
Bye. Wait, okay, is it over?
So thank you so much for tuning in today. If we helped you in any way, then click the subscribe button and let's keep hanging out together. We have so much more to share with you.
And if you need more information on actually making the switch for good, please visit us at switchforgood.org for loads of info. And you can subscribe to our mailing list where you will receive all sorts of super cool gifts, discount codes to our very fave dairy-free products, and a lifetime of powerful health tips.
So join us on the journey to switch for good. This is the future.